Hello and welcome once again to Crazy Comics and Stories. It's me, your charming and delightful old Uncle Rat Bastard. And at the other end of the series of tubes and wires we call the internets is Joe Crazy Writer. How you doing today, Joe?
Happy No Panty teas, Cory.
I know! That's a holiday I can really get behind.
Yep. And of course, I am not wearing panties even as we record this here podcast.
Neither am I!
Well, we got that going for you. You see the things we do for our listeners?
Well, the things we like certain holidays, like World
there are.
Pie Day,
National Redhead Day,
No Panty Day,
Bring Your Large-Breasted Girlfriend to Work Day. Well, maybe not that one, but...
Festivus.
Yeah, you had to go over that line, didn't you?
I always go over the line.
Yeah, if there's a line of good taste here, Cory is way over there.
Wait.
Even farther beyond is me.
Wait, we have good taste? I know that we taste good.
Lately. Sorry, Charlie. Count the references, folks.
I miss the weird animated sponsors, weird animated characters that are spokesmen for food that they're made out of.
Cannibals.
Well, yeah, Charlie the Tuna telling people, hey, buy tuna.
Sorry, Charlie. He just wanted to be turned into a can.
Yeah, he wanted people to kill him and eat him.
Should sit down and watch Sausage Party before he decides to jump in the hook again.
Or, the cows who push for good beef.
Or California raisins dancing to their doom.
Yeah. I even as a kid, I thought that was weird. Mom, why do the pigs want to be eaten? Don't ask those questions, Cory.
Because they're stupid and they taste good.
Well, it's been a week since we got together.
And all sorts of weather.
So much has changed.
I know.
I'm working all the time. Oh, wait, that's all the same.
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
You're still groping men at the airport? That's still the same.
Nope. Gave that up years ago. Now I pretend I'm the Samsonite gorilla on your luggage.
You go through and pull out all the sex toys from people's luggage.
But I always wear gloves.
That's probably a good idea.
It is.
The comic books are still coming out. It's good to know that things don't change. Like Batman being single.
Well, it depends. What Earth are you talking?
Well, the main one.
Earth 1, Earth 2, Earth 52.
Earth Rebirth.
Oh, Afterbirth, yes.
Oh, wait a minute. Nothing stays the same, Joe. Nothing stays the same.
Except the earth and sky.
They don't even stay the same. I was reading the Odyssey. Have you ever read the Odyssey?
Comic adaptation of it.
In the Odyssey, when they're sailing, they talk about how the moon travels around the North Star to escape from the hunter.
Hunter Hearst Helmsley?
Well, no one can escape.
Time to play the game.
No one can escape Hunter Hearst Helmsley.
Bow down to the king.
He married into the family, so he's pretty much there for good. I mean, he got to stay when Shane left.
Yeah, darn.
But no, the stars have moved so much that it's a different North Star, and the constellation that used to be thought of as the Hunters now thought of as something different, and Batman is engaged.
Now I know you're making stuff up.
Nope. Latest issue of Batman proposed to Catwoman.
Well, I can see someone's going to smack across the head. Let me guess. This happened at the tail end, and so we have no idea if she said yes or no.
Correct.
Seen it before. They got married. They made a deal with the devil. Game over.
Well, Batman and Catwoman have been married before.
True. And they both died before.
Well, yeah. But that was the thing about the Earth 2 Batman. Earth 2 Batman married Catwoman, and their daughter was the Huntress. And then after Crisis, They wanted to keep Huntress around because the character was kind of popular, but the origin was a little messy because she was the daughter of two characters that didn't exist anymore. So they made
Folks, if you're following us, we'll be handing out scorecards during the intermission.
So they changed it so that now, then she was the daughter of a mobster and was out to get revenge on the mob.
Yes, that's always a good idea. A one-person war against the mob.
Just
ask Elliot Ness how that worked.
It worked so well for Mac Bolan and Frank Castle.
Yeah, but they're still fighting. It just never ends.
Mac Bolan beat the mob. After 38 books, he had killed all the mobsters, so he started going after Arabs.
Mob lost. Oh, that's good. It's got to have a hobby.
Yeah, so in the 80s, the executioner went from killing mobsters to killing Arabs. And then by the 90s, he killed all terrorists, not just Arab terrorists. But boy, those early executioner books in like 80, 81, woo, there's some racist stuff. Whereas Frank Castle just kills everybody.
Everybody. He's an equal opportunity blowist.
He even ran over Wolverine with the steamroller.
And blew his face right off. Just because he didn't want to talk to him. I mean, I can understand that.
But first off, Joe, my first question is, do you think that this is kind of a good idea? Because back in the 80s, they kind of mellowed Catwoman to the point where, if I recall correctly, she knew that Batman was Bruce Wayne. And they were she had a backup feature in Detective Comics, and she kind of switched to being a hero, but then after Crisis, she went back to being a villain.
You're talking about? He's the goddamn Batman. Have whoever he wants. I don't know. I mean, they went so far to, erase, Spider-Man's marriage, and they destroyed, what was that in, why can't I think of it? Ralph Digby. Plastic Man. And
Elongated Man.
Yeah, and then they screwed up the Atom, and they retroconned Superman. It's like, comic marriages, I call it the moonlighting effect. Yeah, it's a good idea, but, you get all that sexual tension. Will they, won't they? But when they do, it's like, it's no fun anymore. No, kids can't relate to a married Batman. The stories are limited. We've gone down this road before. And plus, being that I wasn't even aware of it, they're doing a hell of a job with publicity on it.
Well, for one thing, they did not announce it ahead of time.
Ooh.
Which
I could explain why they're in a third printing already.
Yes. I was going to say, they didn't announce it ahead of time, and a lot of comic fans and some retailers have said, look, we need some surprises. We need things that kind of blow up. Now, I think 20 years ago, this book could be selling for $15, $20 already. But because because there's digital and because the market is smaller, I don't think it's going to be one of those books, even if this is where it begins and they follow through on it, which I don't think they'll do. I don't think this is a book that would hold its value very much.
What number is it?
24,
24.
I believe.
All right, let's see what the old eBays say. Well, right now, first prints are going, and we're talking active bids. Look like anywhere from $26 to $30. One guy has sold 60 of them at $19.
Wow.
Another guy's sold 89 of them at $17.
And just think, if you had ordered this through DCBS on a monthly basis, you still wouldn't have your copy yet.
Nope. So, yeah, right now it's hot. Second prints are going pretty hot. And like I said, a third print's coming out. It's funny, though, because even as I'm clearing out my vast accumulation of crap, I keep running across books that, had their value and now don't.
Yeah. I think that's what's going to happen with this, especially since it's a cliffhanger. And I don't know where you probably didn't have. No, you didn't have your story yet when Superman told Lois Lane he was Clark Kent. And that was hot for a few months, but even back then, it was hot for a little while, and then it faded off.
I'm looking on the news thing while you're talking, because what'll give it a little heat is if it actually catches any news cycles.
Yeah.
And right now, even in the entertainment, it hasn't. And of course, like I was teasing beforehand, on Earth 2, they did marry. Their daughter, I think, was the Huntress, if I was correct. And, of course, Crisis wiped all that off. But I think both Selena and Bruce were dead before Crisis hit. That was one of the big ones. Batman's dead. This is not an imaginary story. Well, it was Earth 2. Yeah. And even the story...
It was in Adventure Comics when they were running the Justice Society.
Yeah, the dollar ones. So, and then as far as I remember, did they ever catch the villain?
Yeah. And it was some weird, convoluted time travel cosmic thing, which, I'm sorry, that never worked for me, because Batman was never somebody who did the cosmic stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Batman should have, if you're going to do the story where Batman gets killed, easy. He's lost a step, he's still fighting crime, and one of either his archenemies or, just somebody with a gun gets lucky.
Well, then if I remember the story,
years.
If I remember the story right, he changed back into his costume, and people were like, "Why did he do that?" There was no reason for him to really do that. But it's a long time. I know I wasn't reading it. I do remember picking up a copy, probably as a back issue, and then, of course, the very next issue, they're all sitting around, and or am I thinking Mr. Terrific? I don't remember. It's somebody. You know what? I'm going to the Wikipedias because this is bugging me. See, this I don't think it is.
I just remember it felt like, it's a big deal. And then by the next issue, they were on to the next thing, which was one of the things that always bugged me about DC until Crisis. They would have these huge events happen, but the next issue, it's like, no big deal. Even, that's what I liked about Marvel. Marvel felt like a soap opera, whereas DC was, here's this story about the Flash. And then next month, here's another story about the Flash. Now, later on, they took it to a stupid extreme where they had the trial of the Flash, which lasted like 30 goddamn issues.
All right, here we go. I got it. Adventure Comics 462. The Elder Earth 2 Wayne is coaxed out of retirement for one last mission when a thief named Bill Jensen is magically empowered by a sorcerer named Frederick Vox.
Yeah.
Not Earth 2 Felix Vox. Could be. He attacks Gotham City. Let's see. Blah, 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 blah. While dying of cancer from years of pipe smoking, which was, I guess, stated in Brave and Bold number 197, Wayne decides to fight to the death against Jensen, who bears a furious grudge against Wayne, who stops his threat at the cost of his own life. In the aftermath of the battle, public learns that Wayne is Batman's secret identity. Dr. Fate, who hangs out at Earth 2 at the time, removed the memory of the battle, so to protect the identities of Robin and Huntress. So everybody believes Wayne died of cancer at home on the same day that Batman died. Batman's diary was discovered later. This was the miniseries America versus Justice Society,
which was actually really good.
Yeah, that was a pretty good one.
That was Roy Thomas kind of making, basically telling the entire history of the Justice Society, which made it even more of a pain in the ass when right after they said, you got to get rid of the Justice Society. It's, okay, well, they're going to fight Ragnarok forever in a time loop.
Yeah, actually, I ran across that one. Speaking of a comic that's been up in value, that's heading to the dollar box. The America vs. Justice Society had a thing where apparently, what's his name, Degaton?
Yeah, Per Degaton.
Per Degaton had some time travel scheme, and by accusing the JLA of treason, they reformed, and they were able to defeat the time traveling villain.
Roy Thomas really liked Per Degaton. Used him a lot in All-Star Squadron.
let's ask the Strode.
Ooh.
What was Earth 2's Batman formal appearance?
Wouldn't that have been Brave and the Bold 200?
Nope. Secret Origins, Volume 2, Number 6.
Oh, okay. Although, I don't know if that
Golden Age
counts.
Batman. Which again was by Rod.
Okay, because
I guess it would. Because, I mean, it was published, the last thing published that actually had the Golden Age Batman in, not counting, graphic novels and things like that.
Okay.
So, yeah, they did that with Superman, too. After the Crisis was done, they get all these, or Secret Origin of Golden Age Superman and Wonder Woman and all these other fun things. And, it's like, well, okay, but, wasn't that the point of Crisis, to get rid of them all?
Yeah. I loved Secret Origins. Part of it was
fun.
Part of it was kind of a make good to Roy Thomas because they'd canceled all the stuff he was in charge of.
And that's one of the things I'd have done if I was going to be like, Roy, okay, start at day one as far as you want and write a series and go forward and just use our Golden Age characters. It would work if it was Marvel. It would work if it was DC. I said just have some fun with it. Because, I mean, the guy knows his stuff. And I love All-Star Squadron. That is one of the series that I am keeping, even though I have multiple runs of it. I got to make sure I have a complete run because I doubt they'll ever reprint it. And if they do, I would rather just see it in color because it's a lot of fun, especially when they refer to, like, the first appearance of Lex Luthor. Go back and pull out your mint copies of Superman #4, kiddies, and read along.
Well, when I first started reading Marvel, one of the series that was there was The Invaders. I loved The Invaders.
Oh, yeah.
And when they collected it into trades, I realized why I quit reading it. It's like, oh, yeah, Roy Thomas kind of lost interest or stepped away or, yeah, these other guys don't. Ugh, Don Glut. Yeah, no.
By the way, if you want a copy of Adventure Comics, they about $20 to $30 in mint shape. So,
which isn't really bad for a 40-year-old comic where Batman dies.
Batman.
In continuity.
Yes. Well, not anymore. After Infinite Crisis wiped them out, and New 52 totally ignored them, and Rebirth, After Birth, Zero Hour, you name it, DC will find a way to mess it up.
I'm still saying that Earth 2 existed. It was not a hoax, it was not a dream, it was not an imaginary story.
No, they're all imaginary, he says with a wink.
Well, yeah. But
or is it Alan Moore or Alan Grant Morrison who says they all happened? It's up to you to figure out how.
Grant Morrison said they all happened.
I think Alan Morrison
which I prefer.
That theory too.
He's the one who said it's an imaginary story, but aren't they all really? He believes that things come from a place called idea space. And his theory is that there are a number of things that just spring up multiple places with multiple inventors, and it's almost like there's this other dimension called idea space where it's, it's time for the electric light bulb. And 5 or 6 people come up with a version of the electric light bulb. Or it's time for the automobile, and 2 or 3 people put together the idea for an automobile. Or it's time for planes. There were tons of people working on planes when the Wright brothers created theirs. And Moore believes that there are certain ideas when it's time, somebody will come up with them. And usually 2 or 3 people will come up with them, and it's whoever gets it to print first. Grant Morrison believes that all stories are real, and we're just tapping into alternate dimensions where they happen. Or, as in the case of the Invisibles, a story can be a magic spell that creates reality.
So in other words, you're not really listening to this podcast, but you read about this podcast, thereby making it real.
I thought about the podcast, and I thought about it so hard.
You or me. I'm thinking about somebody else. Our listeners. They're the ones who keep us going.
Well, true, but in the creative realm, because I thought about this podcast so hard, I believed it was real, therefore it was real.
Maybe the problem is you never really die until people forget you, in which case a guy like William Shakespeare, who probably wants to just go to this next realm of existence, will never die because we're always going to remember Shakespeare.
Well, that and all his works are in public domain, so anybody can use them.
So the question is it better to be anonymous and just move on or stick around in memories?
I think it would be better to stick around in memories because you've made a difference.
You know, this is getting too metaphysical. I think it's time for an Ask the Strode.
Oh, fine. Fine. We finally have a discussion that I enjoy, and you tap out. Wanker.
Well, this one might work for it. I mean, because this is from our good buddy Angel Medina. He
really?
wants to ask the Strode, what
Angel?
is a 4-letter word for a prison knife?
Shiv.
Okay. Yeah, he was doing a crossword puzzle. He just got stuck. Okay, Angel, we took care of it. Thanks. I sometimes even I feel guilty. I've watched Tron, where they talk about everything A's and O's, and so you're busy backspacing characters. Well, you made those characters exist. They have a sentient in the electronic world, and now I'm just backspacing them because I'm a horrible speller. Hey, look, I exist. Oh, no. I used to guilt my kids because they wouldn't eat their chicken sandwich or something. I said, this chicken had one purpose in life. It was to die for you to eat. And now you're not going to eat it, and its soul will never be at rest. Eat your chicken.
How long did that work?
Well, until they got wise.
Well, I know that at least Holly's a vegetarian, right?
Yeah, about age 9.
Okay.
It
works so much on Holly's you won't eat meat.
I dropped a piece of ice, and I think this poor ice had one thing to do to cool down my beverage, and I dropped it on the floor and kicked it under the fridge. Well, it's its own fault. It shouldn't have fallen out of my hand.
Now, there was a book that came out years and years and years ago by Philip Jose Farmer called Doc Savage, His Apocalyptic Life. That was basically a biography of the character Doc Savage, and said that Doc Savage was related to all these other characters. It's the Wold Newton line, where, Tarzan is related to Doc Savage, who's related to the Shadows, related to Sherlock Holmes. All of these characters are related somehow. And I remember reading that at like age 12 or 13 and feeling really disturbed by that idea, that this was an alternate reality, that all the fiction was connected in. Especially after really getting into Marvel, which had the idea of multiple universes, to the point where you can't even travel into your own past, because when you travel to the past, you have to travel to an alternate universe, because you traveling there didn't happen in our universe, so it has to have happened in another universe.
If you even remember it.
Yes.
That's it, folks. If it doesn't exist, you can make up your own rules for it. That's why vampire stories and zombies are boring.
Oh, I disagree with that.
Vampire zombies. Hey now.
It's been done.
Oh, damn.
George Romero's zombie trilogy he did at Marvel. That didn't sell very well. And it has not been collected into a book for some fucking reason. Hey, Marvel, get on the ball. It's George Romero. That's not the only news that happened, Joe.
There's more? I find it hard to believe. I mean, we got how many minutes out of that last 27 minutes out of just Catwoman, Batman proposing to Catwoman.
DC and Dark Horse have announced that they're going to have a big crossover.
DC and Dark Horse. I wonder if the age of crossovers with Marvel is pretty dead.
I think so. Now, this is Wonder Woman and Conan.
Sorry, I just woofed my cosmic cookies here. I suppose. I mean, one of the things as I'm wading through my stuff, I run across all these goofy crossovers from the past. I'll talk about one of them when we get to freaking and geeking. But sometimes you question why did they do that? And do they even exist anymore? I mean, we've talked about it in the past where, due to licensing rights, we'll never see the 2-in-1 that Ben Grimm and Doc Savage teamed up in. We'll never see Spider-Man teaming up with NFL Super Pro again.
Or the not ready for primetime players.
Oh, Cory, go ahead and talk. I got to go get a Kleenex.
But Conan sales have not been all that great for, I would say, the last 5, 6, 7 years. But I think Wonder Woman and Conan are a good pairing because Wonder Woman has had stories in the past where she's a warrior, kind of Conan is a barbarian. But I'm wondering if these intercompany crossovers, does anyone still care? One of the reasons Marvel won't do it is they say, you've got all the licensing, you've got all of the negotiations, you have to split the profits. It's a mess to reprint them, and they don't sell really well because in the 90s they were doing them all the time, and by the end it was, it's Spider-Man and it's a Silver Surfer and nobody cares.
Conan and Rune, Silver Surfer and Rune.
But Marvel owned all those characters.
I loved all these different crossovers they had. I mean, I enjoyed them. I can understand, I guess, why they don't do them. And sometimes it is a headache. I know Eric Larson had Savage Dragon had the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles team up with Savage Dragon in issue number 22, and he tried to get it to do it again in issue 222. It was some type of, he just thought the numbering thing would be kind of cool and memorable. But the problem is back then when he did it, it used to be you just walk up to Kevin or Peter and say, hey, let's do a crossover. Yeah, sure. Now Nickelodeon has a piece of the rights, and there's all sorts of questioning, and it goes through multiple committees. It's just not a yes/no thing, like you said. Licensing deals, would they be allowed to reprint it? Even now, I don't know if Spawn 10 that had Cerebus in it is ever going to be reprinted. Even though, of all the people, Dave Sim seems to be pretty cool about reprinting stuff. But people just don't do it. Because what happens is they come up and they say, oh yeah, by the way, we own Cerebus for the case of the reprint. And he's like, no. That's what happened in was it Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 8?
Yes.
And they're like, why doesn't it ever be reprinted? I said, well, because they tried to slip a fast one saying that, well, we're going to own this character if we reprint it. And he said, no, that ain't happening. Not that that's gone up in value at all, but it's kind of interesting though, because I do love a good crossover, and it's always interesting to see when you have two licensed characters going. Did they say what got them fired up to do a Wonder Woman Conan crossover?
I have not heard any of that. I just heard the announcement from Gail Simone, who's going to be writing it.
That would be cool.
And of course, everybody was like, "Oh, Gail Simone writing Wonder Woman again! Hooray!"
Yay.
But there were some big intercompany crossovers that I don't remember anything about. Joe, there was this big Marvel crossover with Top Cow.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And I remember within the last couple of years, I pulled him out and looked at him and went, I have no idea if I've read this because I don't remember anything about this story. And I don't think Marvel printed any of them. I think they were all printed by Top Cow. Is that right?
I don't know. They're buried in my vast accumulation of stuff because none of them have a real value to them. But you think let me see if I look up a few. See if I can, because I think it was Wolverine.
It was when Witchblade was red hot. So
Cyber?
it was like, oh God, Witchblade's on the cover of all of them.
Yeah, and
Witchblade crossed over with everything.
Well, I think it was Wolverine, Cyberforce. There was, I don't know if it had an overall, I can't, and they're impossible to look up now because, they were all individual titles. It wasn't like Marvel Top Cow presents.
It was called Devil's Reign. And, oh, look, Top Cow Marvel Crossover Collection Volume 1 is available on Amazon. And, let's see, paperback $24.65.
Devil's Reign. All right.
There were 11 issues.
Well, the one that I've got that popped up right away is a Wizard mail-in. They had apparently it was Silver Surfer Witchblade 0.5. But after that, it breaks down into individuals. I've run across these, because like I said, when I'm busy trying to figure out if this thing has any value to it. Devil's Reign. Nope, just that one crossover. Let's see what Google has to say.
Yay, Google.
Devil's Reign crossover. Survey says. Oh yeah, no, it was all chapters. Mephisto is attempting to gather all the souls, and there's Weapon Zero Silver Surfer, which is chapter 1. Cyblade Ghost Rider Ballistic Wolverine, Wolverine Witchblade Elektra Cyblade. There's the 1/2 I mentioned earlier, Silver Surfer Witchblade, and the finale is Silver Surfer Weapon Zero. And there's a few crossover issues like Cyber Force, Weapon Zero, and 8 chapters. And,
well, there must have been more because the trade paperback says there are 11 comics in it.
Yeah, well, unless there's page 2 to this. It says that's the finale.
Okay.
Boy, when the internet just can't even get things right.
How dare they? But you see, to me, one of the things Marvel said that rings true to me is by the end they weren't special anymore.
Well, I think once they shot their wad with JLA Avengers, that's the one that I think was the last big one where everybody was just crazy for it. Any J fan or you weren't an Avenger fan, everybody was like, yeah, I'd get a piece of that. George Perez finally doing what they talked about years ago.
And it was a really well done story.
Oh, it was fantastic. I mean, I pull my Absolute out and read it whenever I can. Plus, at the back, they have all the what would you call it, addendum that tells you, especially towards issue 4, where everybody's changing so fast and furiously, and they were trying to get every single version of every single character somewhere in the panel.
Which is important.
I'm thinking of other goofy crossovers that people got attention for, like Archie Punisher was one.
That one was really fun, though. That one was really fun.
I don't know what the results were for the last Archie one. It was like an Archie versus Predator and a Archie Sharknado that came out. And I've seen people, complain online, these aren't the Archie characters I remember. I can't believe they did that. And it's like, well, these were not really, tied in.
When's the last time you bought an Archie comic, buddy?
Yeah.
That's whenever anybody starts saying, this isn't the blah, blah, blah I remember. I would say, when's the last time you bought that?
It's funny because even at my feet here, I have Lobo Judge Dredd. Alan Grant, John Wake, Simtek, and John Dell. That was probably what happened. They just started to go crazy, crossing over anybody and everything. I mean, there were a few that were fun. Didn't John Byrne show up with a Galactus versus Darkseid one?
Yeah.
I mean, and he drew it, so anytime John drew something was...
Well, not only that, no one asked for it. He just showed up and said, hey, I did this.
I just got to get this out of my system. Peter David did a column in his comic buyer's guide back page that... I'm trying to remember what it was called, but I digress.
Yes.
How could I forget? He did this, he said there were just useless stories that came out of me that will never, ever be published. And it was a crossover between Beauty and the Beast and Quantum Leap. And what he did is he fixed the terrible ending that they did with the Beauty and the Beast story, where they killed off I don't even know the name of the characters. What's her? Linda
Hamilton.
Yeah, he killed off her character, brought back somebody else. Well, he ends up leaping into the character of the Beast and has to stop this from happening. And actually, I thought, to me, it was more fun reading that than it was watching the miniseries that came afterwards. Yes, kids, the 80s were a wonderful time.
Parts of it were.
Is there a crossover you would pay
clothes.
money for? I mean, are you going to do Wonder Woman?
I'll pick it up because it's Gail Simone.
Is it a one-shot? Is it a miniseries? Do we know anything yet?
We don't know anything yet. I imagine it'll be in the next previews we get. But really, there aren't a lot of crossovers that I'm looking for, that I look at and go, ooh, that would be cool. Because in the 90s, they pretty much did them all. And by the end, it was, oh, yeah, it's, okay. Yeah. Batman's beating Daredevil again. And really, in a lot of ways, JLA Avengers was a perfect way to end that era.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't mind another Teen Titans X-Men, but it's got to be by Walt Simonson.
Yeah. Now, does Dynamite, they're still banging out a lot of crossovers, especially with DC. Yeah, those catch your fancy? I know they did a lot with, like, Batman 66 meets Steel and Miss Peel. And they did it with The Shadow, and they just did, Wonder Woman and Bionic Woman.
Yeah, none of those are things where I go, oh, wow, can't wait to see that. Because, I like Batman 66. I thought it was a well-done series, and I read every issue of whatever they put out. And by the end, they were doing the crossovers so that they could at least still print the darn thing, because sales had tanked. But I'm looking at stuff, and the only thing that I think would be fun, and it will never, ever, 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 ever happen, Star Trek, Star Wars.
Yeah.
That would be fun. Especially, compare and contrast, which is why you do a crossover. The Batman Daredevil story, the first one, showed the differences between the two characters. Batman is about revenge, and Daredevil is about justice, and they're different. Or Batman's about revenge, and Spider-Man is about guilt.
Did you like Star Trek Planet of the Apes?
No, it didn't work.
See, and I would say it
didn't work for me.
I would say it did work, because the big thing was they stuck to the Prime Directive, and they didn't. They tried to prevent the interfering of the culture going on, even though they didn't necessarily agree with it. And they did the one thing that I would have done. You asked Taylor, hey, do you want to come back to Earth with us? And he was like, no, I'll stay on this Earth. And obviously he wasn't going to do it.
Because we know he has to die at the end of Beneath the Planet of the Apes.
Well, see, I talked earlier, there was a book about Tales from the Forbidden Zone, where writers took different tales, including things like I don't know if you remember the animated Planet of the Apes from...
Yep.
They
got it on DVD, baby.
Yep, I got that one myself. And they went with that, and one of the characters, and I can't remember if it was Caesar or if they had their own Galen character, but he knew about that, hey, this shouldn't be, the world was supposed to be destroyed, hundreds of years ago, but there's so many things that are similar, Here's Zira, here's the zombies under this city, there's Zura, but where's Taylor? There's no Taylor. Has he arrived yet? And it's just little things like that. Again, this isn't continuity things. This is just people having fun with the various properties. And, it's published in a book so that guys like me can geek on it. I enjoyed things like that. I haven't seen Tim Burton one, though.
Yeah.
Dare I?
It's not as terrible as everybody says. I know the ending annoyed a lot of people, but one of the things about Planet of the Apes, because of the first one, is the filmmakers felt there had to be a big twist at the end of each movie.
Ah, what a twist.
And you do know why the world got blown up at the end of Beneath the Planet of the Apes, right?
Why?
That's the only way Charlton Heston would show up in the sequel.
Oh, that's right. And it comes under the
we
realm...
need you in the sequel. All right, but you have to end it. No more.
It comes under the realm of once you see it, you can't unsee it. But what was really weird, I mean, what happens now when a movie does really well at the box office? The studio turns around and throws more money at it and says, make a better sequel. Well, back then it was almost the opposite. It was like 20th Century Fox was like, okay, we're going to do a sequel, but we're going to cut your budget.
Yeah.
So when you get to those great scenes where like all the apes are around Ursula, as he's explaining, there's somebody out in the Forbidden Zone. We have to go and declare war. Okay, the first couple rows were in full ape makeup. The back rows were all basically sacks with holes in them. And when you start seeing that, you just can't not see it. It's kind of like different things. Like you're never going to watch Star Wars and not notice that stormtrooper bump his head when he walks into that control room. Or watch Mr. Nanny with some guy in the background throwing his dog into the water. It's nothing to do with the plot, just something they caught on camera.
Well, one of my favorite, what is it? It's one of Barry Sonnenfeld's earliest movies. I think it's called For Love or Money. And it's this very slight romantic comedy with Michael J. Fox. But there's a scene where somebody's running down the street in a weird costume and he says, I'll get you, I'll teach you to make fun of our hats. And it has nothing to do with anything. And every time I see it, I go, that's amazing. I want to know more about that guy.
Yes.
And Barry Sonnenfeld's next movie, of course, was Addams Family. But one of the reasons why they didn't give as much money to sequels, there were two types of sequels in Hollywood back then. First were the movies that were series, like The Thin Man, or Mom Pa Kettle, or Blondie, or The Dead End Kids. They were normally just low-budget movies where we've got these characters, okay, about every 6 months we'll put out another one.
Elvis movies.
Elvis movies were a lot like that, except they weren't all sequels to each other. But a little while back, I really got hooked on wanting to see those, so I did pick up the Mom Pa Kettle box set, and I picked up the On the Road movies with Hope and Crosby. But I wanted to get the Blondie movies, too, and there wasn't a complete set out there. And it was, aww. Now, I bet those movies aren't very good, but I remember back when I was a kid, that's how they'd fill a Sunday afternoon. It's like, okay, we're going to show a Blondie movie, and they'd show all the Blondie movies. Okay, now we're going to show Mom Pa Kettle, and they'd show the Mom Pa Kettle movies. Every Sunday they'd get, here's the next one. But you had those, or you'd have the sequel, which was really kind of a cheap knockoff of the original, where, okay, sequels don't make as much money, so we're not going to be able to afford the main stars, and we're not going to be able to afford this. So the budget would be cut in half, and they'd go from there. And there were even some after Star Wars, the whole idea of sequels became very different, because Godfather Part 2 was a real sequel. It was the rest of the story. Empire Strikes Back was, the next part of the story. But you also had a lot of stuff like Jaws 2.
In Jaws 4, this time it's personal.
And Michael Caine has the best quote about that movie ever. Because he was filming that movie when he won his Oscar for Hannah and Her Sisters. And somebody asked, do you feel bad about the fact that you missed winning that Best Actor Oscar for filming, Jaws 4? And he said, are you kidding? Jaws 4 paid for my home in the Bahamas. You have to think, he's one of those guys who, it's a job.
Yeah.
And they paid me a lot of money, so I'm going to show up. Meanwhile, you got Nicolas Cage, who I think he only picks the worst films and the best films. And all the stuff in between he doesn't get, because his movies are either ungodly terrible or amazingly weird. Shall we talk sales? Joe?
Yes.
Shall we talk sales?
Well, you do. I'll sit back and listen.
Well, actually, I want to ask you a question. With all the uproar...
No. Gotta phrase it properly.
What does Joe know?
Okay, I'm ready.
But this is more of an opinion.
Oh, well, then forget it. What does Joe think, and why should we give a crap?
You've heard all of the people complaining about Secret Empire.
Well, not all of them. Most of them I just tune out.
Yeah, but you hear people are, it's terrible. I'm not going to buy it. I refuse to buy it.
No, that's so wrong. How could Jack Kirby would never do that. I mean, even though he had, Captain doing a Hitler salute to the Red Skull earlier. Yeah. Oh my God, it spits all over Jack Kirby. Nobody spits on Jack Kirby. Trust me.
So how do you think the first 3 issues of Secret Empire sold?
Well, judging by what I saw at the source, maybe not at all. Of course, it's always hard to tell with all the variants they tie into these things. They may have made their money back.
Secret Empire #1 was the #1 selling book in May. It outsold the Batman and Flash, the Button crossover. It outsold Venom #150, which was the #2 book. Secret Empire #1 was the #1 selling comic. Secret Empire #2 was the #6 selling comic. Secret Empire #3 was the #8 selling comic. By the way, I'm about to surprise you, Joe. The #5 selling comic, coming in at around 105,000 copies, is one I bet you haven't even heard of.
Mad Dog #5.
Nope. Guardians of the Galaxy Mission Breakout #1. It is a comic book tie-in to the new Disney park, the Disney theme park ride.
Ooh.
And while I bet it didn't sell all that well in comic shops, boy, did it sell pretty well in those Disney stores at the park. People would go and get on the ride and buy the comic. So 105,000 copies. Batman and the Flash, the lenticular edition, both sold over 100,000. As did Secret Empire #2, sold about 101,000. But for all the talk about Secret Empire, I'm not buying it. It's going to flop. Nobody cares. It's sold pretty well. But Marvel's starting books with a new #1 is not working anymore. Let's see, Guardians of the Galaxy #1, the new series, only sold about 82,000 copies. Jean Grey #1 sold about 70,000. Cable #1 sold about 60,000. And the 2 new X-Men books, Gold is selling... Gold came in at 18. God! And X-Men Blue #3 came in at number 29.
Ooh.
And I'm just going to go down the list. Normally, about the 20,000 sales line is where Marvel and DC start to look at books to be canceled. So at 123 is the last book that sold over 20,000 copies. That's Hulk #6.
You ain't got $12 on you, do you?
Right now, yeah.
Because you can buy one of them Guardians of the Galaxy Mission Breakouts on eBay for $12.
Ew.
Well,
the number 300 selling book was Josie and the Pussycats #7 at 5,000 copies. So the
they got long tails and ears for hats.
The bottom selling comic is selling at over 5,000 copies now, which to me shows that the long tail is getting longer. Because one of the things to remember is, the top book's selling 100,000, but the bottom book, you've got 300 comics that are selling over 5,000 copies, whereas 10, 15 years ago, the number 300 book barely sold 1,000. So I think more and more people are buying. They're not coming in and buying, 20 books. They're buying 4 or 5 different. But Marvel is announcing their plans for Legacy, which is their September reboot. And 2 things they've said. One is that they're going to go to legacy numbering. So Hulk is going to be like over 700 issues. Spider-Man.
I'm sorry, what was that, Marvel?
Well, they're going back to the old numbering.
I've been there, done that. Till they decide to do number 1s again, get us all excited.
Well, that's why Venom has issue 150.
Wake me up when something new arrives.
How about if I wake you up when Marvel says that they're going to not publish as many books? In the month of May, they published 95 comics.
Ooh, hang on, I just did my order. And I picked up, let's see, where did I throw that? 12 of them.
Will there be math involved?
I just counted.
Okay, I was told there would be no math.
Yep. Nope, I just did 12.
Oh. But how many trade paperbacks?
Funny you should mention that. We'll talk about that when we get to Kiki.
How many omnibuses?
That's freaking.
But one of the things that is starting to happen is Boom did it about a year ago. They cut the number of books they were putting out, and they saw an increase in their sales per book. And Marvel is going to do that, and I think they'll see a huge increase in sales per book. DC, on the other hand, is now publishing more than they published when they were doing the New 52, and most of their books are bi-weekly, and now they're creeping up to $3.99. But I don't see people pissing and moaning about DC doing bi-weekly like they did for Marvel. And I wonder if it's because Marvel did it first, so they have to take all the shit.
Or maybe just people ain't buying the DC ones.
No, the DC stuff's selling pretty well. They got 31% of the market share, with Marvel getting about 36% of the market share. So DC was able to pump up to, be the number 1 selling company when they restarted a bunch of books. But now that it's been going for about a year, everything's back to the way it was, 2-3 years ago, with Marvel getting about between 35 and 40%, and DC getting between 25 and 30%.
And they'll reboot. The takeaway is, hey, let's launch a new universe every month.
No, just once a year.
Oh, okay.
Every September.
No, they're going to once a month. It'll happen.
They could do it,
Yep, we'll look at that podcast in about 2-3 years from now, and we'll say, can you believe they're relaunching for the 5th month in a row?
Can you believe that they stole Joe's idea and didn't give him anything for it?
It's no wonder Image is the number 1 comic company now.
Image still has a book in the top 10, by the way.
The Walking Fred.
Yep, Walking Dead, number 10, with 74,000 copies sold. The next book that's not Marvel or DC, I'm having to go down quite a ways here.
Cory's going down.
Still going.
Get down, Strode. Get down.
Still going.
Get down, make love. Get down.
There we go. Paper Girls number 14 comes in at number 91. Neil Gaiman's American Gods comes in at number 95 for Dark Horse.
Topping American Countdown for the 5th week in a row at number 91.
Youngblood number 1 came in at 104th. So you got that going for you, which is nice. And the Spawn 25th Anniversary Director's Cut, number 1, came in at 111th.
He must be very proud.
Well, yeah. How much did the first issue originally sell? Like 3 or 4 million copies?
Millions! You can find it for $2 on them eBays.
Hey, you can find it in the quarter bins at any good convention. Hell, you can find it in the quarter bin at a bad convention.
Yeah, that is true.
You know who's not going to be having a bad convention?
The Shriners?
I don't know. I've never been to a Shriner convention.
I haven't either.
I meant these guys. Our sponsors. That's right. Here at the Solitaire Rose Radio Network, we have ads, and our first sponsor is me. That's right. You're charming and delightful old Uncle Rat Bastard. I have my first book out with Dangerous Dan Moore. It's the first 100 strips of our online web strip, Worldwide News, the story of the lowest rated cable news network. And you can get yourself a copy with commentary, with all sorts of extras, with signatures and everything. Just email Dan over at lordshadowflame@gmail.com. Our top sponsor, who's been with us since day one, is DreamHost. DreamHost.com. You need yourself a website, and DreamHost.com is the #1 web host in the whole known universe. Just head over to DreamHost.com, put in the code KRAYZ, KRAYZ, get $20 off your first year. How can you beat that? Our other sponsor is Graze, GRAZE.com. Healthy snacks for a healthy lifestyle. Just head over to Graze, put in the code CORYS 3R5P. Your first and fifth box are free. You could get them weekly. You could get them bi-weekly. You could get them monthly. You just order a whole bunch of them. It's great stuff to keep you away from the vending machine at work. Now, if you would like to leave a comment for any of the podcasts that we do, we'd love those. Go ahead and email us at solitairerosenetwork@gmail.com, or you can call 952-856-0519. Operators are standing by. Okay, it's just a place that will record your calls, but we'll play them on the air. We'll answer your questions. We love getting feedback. Tell us what you think. Ask a question. Suggest a topic. Be a guest. Send us your stuff. SolitaireRoseNetwork@gmail.com. If you would like to advertise on any of the Solitaire Rose radio shows, you can. Just email us at SolitaireRoseNetwork@gmail.com. Subject advertising. Thanks. And you know, there's all kinds of shows here on the Solitaire Rose Radio Network, Joe.
There are.
Yes, there's this show.
Yeah.
There's Solitaire Rose Radio.
Cool.
Which is my solo podcast. There's Solo Joe, which it's been months since we got a new one of those.
Very irregular. It's kind of like my bowel movements.
We have Bad Advice that I do with Dan and Wolfie.
Oh, Dan's finally showed up, huh?
Oh, yeah.
I thought for a while it was just going to be you and Wolfie, but I knew Dan would have to, it's not like he's busy drawing the sequel to your fantastic, collection of web strips. No, he'd rather just horn in on somebody else's podcast.
Yeah, that's kind of a sore point.
Yeah.
It's not Novelcast.
No.
Not just Novelcast. But two of our friends have a show that neither one of us is on.
Oh, that would definitely be worth downloading.
That's right. It's Dave and Stephanie Cofell doing Scrabbling Across the West. And here's them talking about it.
Scrabbling Across the West, a fortnightly retelling of Dave and Stephanie Cofell.
Fortnightly?
That means every 2 weeks.
I know what it means. What if we wanted to do it more or less often than every 2 weeks?
Well, that wouldn't be holding down the fort, would it?
Oh, you're funny. Okay, how about frequently?
All right, I'm good with that.
Okay.
Scrabbling Across the West, a frequent retelling of Dave and Stephanie Cofell's adventures in traveling, making music, and playing Scrabble across the Western Hemisphere. It's all about the people, the places, and the game. Scrabbling Across the West. Bye-bye.
Bye.
And after we get all the plugs out of the way...
She does love herself a good tater tot, doesn't she?
Yes, she does. And you know why we're all still friends, right?
Because she refuses to use the Strode cleaning van.
That's right. And after we do all our plugs, which seem to be getting longer and longer, we're becoming the Tonight Show.
Pretty soon it'll be just, here's our podcast of plugs.
Hey! Think people will pay us for that?
As long as you promise not to clean their house, sure.
Damn right, okay. After we ask about after we do all the plugs, we ask Joe, what does For the Win mean? No, it's Joe, what's going on the eBays?
Well, as you know, my goal is to get everything...
Do every podcast without pants.
Well, I've already reached that. That's off the bucket list. But we've got this here Fall Comic-Con coming up, October 7th, 2017.
They still do those?
Yep, the Minnesota State Fair Education Building. With advanced
education.
Tickets starting on September 1st at mcbacomiccons.com. I will go there, be there, I hope, and it'll be my first final sale.
You're tabling at the show.
Yes, and I'm blowing out stuff. And matter of fact, we're going to take a left turn here, and let's talk to Cory about. Well, we don't talk to Cory. We all know we ask the Strode. Are you ready, Cory?
No, but that's never stopped me.
That's very true. Cory, tell me about the comic Mad Dog.
Is that the one from Marvel?
Yes.
All right. There was a TV series called Bob, about Bob Newhart, and in it he created a character, went away and worked for other stuff, and then the premise of the series is he came back to work on the comic book character he created called Mad Dog. And the problem was he had done it in a kind of a happy fashion, and the new version was dark and gritty. And Marvel did, I think they did 2 or 3 issues that had both versions. They had the grim and gritty version and the older version. However, that's not the only Marvel version of Mad Dog.
Well, the fun thing about the comic was it was a flip book.
Yes.
So, yeah, the one side was Evan Dorkin, Gordon Purcell, our good buddy, local comic creator. And then the other side was by Ty Templeton and Jeff Albright, which I'm not sure which side was supposed to be the Ace comic book that Bob worked on, and the other side was just supposed to be a more realistic version.
Templeton did the older version, Evan Dorkin did the new version, and Dorkin hated working on it. To the point where he still says that it was his worst experience in comics. However, Joe, is that the only Mad Dog that Marvel ever produced?
Well, they did Mad Dogs, I think. Or was that? No, I'm sorry, that was Eclipse.
Marvel had a character named Mad Dog, and it was Patsy Walker's boyfriend, Buzz, turned into a supervillain. I don't think he ever got his own book, but he's been a villain in a number of things, including some of the Patsy Walker Hellcat stories.
Well, okay. Let me ask you this one. What, Mr. Strode, as we ask the Strode, is the significance of Lethargic Comics number 9? Think distributorship.
I can actually see the logo. I don't remember.
Well, Lethargic Comics was being published by Alpha Comics. It was a small press book, fairly humorous. But what happened is, this was back 1995.
When the distributor collapse happened.
And Diamond basically informed the creators of Lethargic Comics, Greg Hyland, that we are no longer going to offer your product. Due to continuing poor sales of your product, Lethargic Comics, we have decided to no longer carry this items through previews. If at a later date you feel there is enough interest in your products for us to try soliciting it again, please feel free to contact me. So the last issue that Diamond would carry would be number 9. Now what happened was that Greg just, he didn't take it standing down. He got Jeff Smith and Bone to help increase the sales in number 9. He got Evan Dorkin with Milk and Cheese in issue 11. There were plans to have Bill Tucci with She in number 12 and do a regular issue in 13 in color. And this was kind of noticed, too, because Heroes Illustrated at the time rated them one of the best 49 comics of 1994. But Diamond was unimpressed. They were like, but we were. Aren't you aware that Lethargic Comics was rated one of the best 49? By who? Asked Diamond. By Heroes Illustrated. We didn't rate it one of the best 49 comics. Hero Illustrated means nothing to us, which I'm sure Heroes was happy to hear at the time. And then he explained that retailers have decided that Lethargic Comics wasn't a quality book, and they were not ordering it. So when Diamond says they stand for quality, what they really mean is quantity, right? To which Diamond Comics had no answer. So, but that was part of the problem they had, is that Diamond at the time, Cap City was on their last legs. Was Heroes World bought by Diamond or Marvel? Yeah, they had bought it the previous year. And what was happening is that although sales were going up, they weren't going up enough for Diamond. And Diamond did this across the board to a lot of different publishers. And back then it was easy that you could just go to Cap City and get it, which wasn't really a good answer because, oh, good Lord, everybody and their uncle ended up going with Diamond. Marvel, Dark Horse, DC, Image. I'm sure there's other ones I'm not thinking of that are probably no longer in business anymore. So it was basically, when I had the shop, in order for me to get a copy of this, what I did is as many books as I could, and Top Cow was, I think, the only major publisher I could think of that was included, I'd order it through Cap City. And then everything else was through Diamond or Heroes World. Well, that eventually everything collapsed, and now it's back to Diamond. And every so often you do hear rumblings that Diamond has decided, well, we're going to have to cut this book because it's not selling a lot, and so on and so on. And so that basically was Lethargic Comics number 9. Sadly, no longer being published today. Last issue, I don't know if it ever came out. I think the last issue was number 11 at... No, I guess number 12 was She Did come out.
Joe, did you like Lethargic Lad?
It was funny. I mean, I enjoyed it. It wasn't something I could see a lot of people getting into because, A, it was black and white, and, it was different types of things going on in different stories.
Please go to your computer.
Computer?
And in the address bar of your browser, type lethargiclad.com.
All right. Oh, you didn't tell me there was going to be spelling.
Hey, you didn't tell me there was going to be math.
Ooh, webcomics every Saturday.
There you go. It's still around.
Good. Nothing published, though. But, hey, if there's life in there webcomics.
I don't know.
Other side of the coin, I've gone through...
Webcomics are dead.
I've gone through 2 boxes of comics. Now, how many comics do you think fit in a long box, Cory?
300.
And of those 300, I have found maybe 20 are worth anywhere from $5 to $20, so I pull them aside. But I found 2 that have a price of about $100.
Oh!
Which surprised the living bejesus out of me. And it's always a pleasure to find. So, the first one, which is up now, is Wonder Woman number 609, the Alex Garner variant cover from 2011. Yeah, which is really weird. And, mine is not near mint, so I have it up for a little less. But it's apparently I think that's when Wonder Woman came back from either being a god or maybe it's when she first comes back to her classic uniform. I really don't know. The other one that really threw me was Lost in Space, Strangers Among Strangers, which was a reprint book of issues number 1 and 2, based, of course, on the classic television series. The nearest I can see why this one is so pricey is because it has exclusive, unique interviews with a lot of the major stars that were still alive. And this one, too, has a $100 price point on it. I haven't bagged and boarded it yet. I've got to go through it, make sure it's in nice shape. Because, I mean, we've talked in the past about The Lonely War of Willie Schultz.
Yes.
It was a reprint from America's Comics Groups, and they are pretty pricey. But I noticed as I was going through my near mint copy, it's not near mint. There's some type of water damage on the cover. Very subtle, but so I had to lower the price from $25 to $10. Oh, the pain, the pain.
And I believe that's a reprint of some Carlton stuff.
Yep, Fighting Army.
Because Carlton, a lot of people don't know this. Everything Carlton has published, unless DC bought it up, DC bought their heroic characters. When Carlton went belly up, everything went public domain. All of it.
Ooh.
Which is why the webcomic Last Kiss, which uses a lot of the Carlton romance stuff, the guy who does that, he actually found out about Carlton going under, and he actually drove out to the publishing house and bought the film so that he could have the best possible stuff to make that comic Last Kiss from, which is where you take old romance comics and write in funny new captions.
Oh, funny. Yeah, and highly recommended, in my opinion. Fun stuff.
But all of that Carlton stuff is all public domain. All of it. Everything they published, all of the Many Ghosts of Dr. Graves and all that wonderful Ditko stuff. All public domain. Which is why you're seeing lots of reprints of it now. Now, Roger McKenzie, who most people would know from his run on Daredevil, he was the writer when Frank Miller took over Daredevil. He and some other people are trying to bring Carlton back. They have the name. They've got a Patreon where if you subscribe, you get new comics every week. I looked it over, and it's a good idea, but, man, they're not making a lot of money on it. And I think without print, it's just not going to work.
But meantime, my eBay's working. So crazy. Krayz. And if you mention you heard it here on this here podcast, I will take something out of my vast accumulation of crap. And it might be a book we just talked about. You want that copy of Lethargic Lad? Well, when you buy something, I may put it in your box. So just let me know. And,
you may put in a half-eaten Snickers bar.
No. I would never do that. I would. Fully digest. That's why you're not on the eBays.
Well, that's true.
Yep.
And I'm lazy.
Right. There is that.
One of the laziest men on the planet.
Yep. Who works, ungodly hours?
Hey!
If he ain't podcasting, he's at the home, or he's taking HR comments. It's just, lazy. That's you, Strode.
Yep. Well, what? I only worked 90 hours this week.
You slacker.
I know.
I had bowel movements longer than that.
I don't need to know that.
That no one does.
Well, now it's time for my favorite part of the show. No, not where to get discount bikini waxing.
Ooh, hang on, that could be valuable.
It's freaking and geeking. Joe, what are you freaking on?
A sad kind of freaking. I was all excited. They had the Nexus Compendium that was done on Kickstarter a while back. Unfortunately, their son and Brandon apparently has had some serious health issues to the point where they actually have a GoFundMe set up for him for Brandon Rood's medical fund, upwards of $40,000. Yeah, good thing they're taking away all that health care in Washington as we speak. So, unfortunately, the project was canceled. They are offering, the things that are made currently, like prints, T-shirts, if you want to get filled with that. A lot of people, me included, are just saying, no, go ahead, keep the money, put it to Brandon's fund. Dark Horse will be printing it, and I guess there's even a paperback one that they will try to replace with that was published by a third one. But if you were waiting for that particular Kickstarter to fill, they're just not going to be able to do it, which is really kind of a bummer. So I hope things are going well, and their Kickstarter, they're well beyond, or the GoFundMe, they're well beyond half price. So if you can give a couple bucks, help Brandon out. It's a shame that's the way healthcare is nowadays, but in less significant freaking news, the one thing we were talking earlier about graphic novels, I had to bite the bullet and not buy Jack Kirby's Fourth World Omnibus. Just don't have the money to do it because it was kind of a combination. I can buy these graphic novels or buy that one, and I'm not like Cory. I don't think I have multiple copies of either the original or the reprints. A lot of these I've probably only read in bits and pieces. But it would have been nice to have to get that. I still got a few days to think about it, but that was one I had to pass. And the other thing I'm freaking on is, of course, what Cory boasts about daily. For the love of God, Cory, are you overworking yourself?
Pretty much, yeah.
But how are you doing?
There are times when it gets a little much. Last weekend, and we'll bleed into our freaking.
Yeah, I'm pretty much done. Go ahead.
Last weekend, I was signed up to do Friday evening, do a sleep shift Friday, work in the morning on Saturday, then come back Saturday night, do a sleep shift, and then work through the day. Every other Sunday is when I work a regular, 7 to 3 and 8-hour shift. So as I'm driving in for my evening shift, I get a text followed by a phone call, panicky, Cory, is there any way you can stay awake on your overnight tonight? Oh, I don't know. I left work at 6. I'm coming into work now. I've been at work all day. And they were, the person who was going to do the shift, they called in sick. We don't have anybody. We've called. You're there. Is there any way you could stay awake? And I said, all right, I could stay awake, but I have to be able to leave as early as possible because I will have been up for 24 hours straight. Well, the earliest we could get you out of here is 9. I won't be safe to drive home. I will have been up and at work for 28 hours. So they were able to get me out of there at 8. I do not remember driving home. I do not remember driving home. But I know I didn't kill anyone because there's no blood on the car.
It did rain overnight,
But not during the day on Saturday.
Could somebody be cleaning Cory's car and not telling him?
No, because none of you fuckers have showed up and done my dishes or cleaned my kitchen. Isn't there anyone who doesn't want to be my friend anymore? Anyway, so Saturday, I get home, I sleep, I wake up a few times, I try to get some stuff done, and I just can't. I'm too tired. I go in, and I sleep through the evening shift. Thank God somebody showed up for that. But Sunday, I was just out of it all day. They asked me if I would drive people to church, and I said, I don't think it's a good idea. I'm just not awake enough, especially with a couple of the clients who you really have to watch when you're driving because they'll unbuckle their seatbelts to get up and change seats and stuff. And it's like, no, I'll stay here. I'll cook dinner. I can do pills. I can do this. But driving, I would be having to watch 2 or 3 things at once, and I really can't do that. So by the time I got home Sunday, I was just out of it. It was one of those nights where I sat on the couch, and I know the TV was on, but I don't know what I watched. And then Monday, at the full-time job, we got hit real hard with a bunch of stuff. I really didn't recover from that being awake all night till about Wednesday. And Joe, I think that tells us something.
That you're crazy?
No, I'm too old to be awake for more than 24 hours.
Yeah, that's a game for the youth.
And you remember when I would go and work at the group home in the late 90s where I'd go in and Nutter will have signed up to do the awake overnight shift, and then he would always call about 10 o'clock and go, Cory, I'm not going to be able to do the awake overnight shift. Is there a way you could stay? And he would come up with excuses for the first couple of years until finally he just, yeah, Cory, I'm not doing the awake overnight. I'm fat, I'm stupid, and I don't have anybody to work. Well, read a book, walk around the block. I don't care about that stuff. Can you stay? Which gave Joe the lots of messages on the shop voicemail.
It'd be fun to save a few. Those would be some fun sound bites.
Well, that was when I did the Homer Simpson thing. I called and said, 64 slices of American cheese.
Yep.
1.
Click, and he calls back.
I called back about 2 hours later. 31. Then called back at 6 in the morning. 64.
I think I'm blind.
So I was last weekend was pretty exhausting. This weekend, however, I'm only doing sleep shifts, which is nice because I like getting paid to sleep, which means that both Saturday and Sunday I'm getting home from work at 6 in the morning. I'm doing an interview with a friend of the show, Patrick McAvoy. We're going to be talking about who were Kirby's best inkers as we begin doing the celebration of Jack Kirby this summer. And, I might not do a whole lot of anything. The other thing I'm freaking out about is Marvel announcing that they're going to be cutting their line, which means that a lot of books that I enjoy are going to go away. One that already looks like it's going away is Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur. No matter what we do, the Inhumans just won't fucking go away. Marvel! The Inhumans are never going to catch on, okay?
We're going to bring back Sleepwalker, Sandman done right.
We lost Power Man and Iron Fist. So some of the more fun, more quirky Marvel books are going to go away. And some of them are starting to show up on Marvel Unlimited. So some of the books that are, Fool Killer. How they greenlit Fool Killer as a series, I have no idea. And now I've read the first 2 issues and went, oh, okay, I could see that.
The problem is they just got too many frickin' books. They just can't promote them all the way they should.
I agree with that, but I also, one of the things that you talk about, if Marvel or DC gets to the point where they're not putting out enough books for it to be profitable for the shops, you could see some shops collapse. And the whole nobody's buying this stuff. I was at Hot Comics 2 weeks ago, and boy, on the new comic rack, there were a lot of books that were sold out. A lot of the Secret Empire stuff they only had like 2 and 3 copies of, so somebody's buying it.
Well, and they're also ordering thin. One of the nice things about places like Hot Comics is they have a very, very active subscription base, something that they continued after they bought the shop from Brian, who bought it, from Brian sold to Krista, and Krista sold it to I don't know. I've been talking to Adam to try to get the owner of Hot Comics to sit down, and that's the one piece of the Hot Comics puzzle we don't have. How did they get to buy the 2 remaining Hot Comics? But, yeah, I suspect stores like that, and when I had the shop as well, you ordered for subscribers and then a few on the shelf. And if it sold off the shelf, so be it. Like you said, you didn't lose money when you sold out. Sometimes I'll go to the source and I'll see they have tons of a certain book on the shelf, and you're like, anybody monitoring this? Or maybe, they sold so many of the variants that these are essentially freebies. So whether they sell them or sit on them, they're paid for. So I just don't know anymore.
Freaking, Joe, we did freaking. Geeking, what are you geeking on, Joe?
I lied. I only buy 11 current Marvel comics. I said 12.
See, you can't.
I got it, but I did look at the graphic novels. From Dark Horse, I'm getting Oh My God, it's 6. These are things ordered that are coming. I decided to bite the bullet and do the Night Force hardcover again because it's got everything in it, and I don't know if I have everything in my.
It doesn't have everything though.
Oh.
It has the first series, but it doesn't have the second series.
Oh wow, the second series wasn't that great. I remember.
See, I would pick it up if it had the second series in it.
Kind of like
just the first series, which I got.
And I've got it too, but it'd be nice to have it in a nice hardcover. The second Bloom County book, brand spanking new day, I picked up. I'll pick up Copperhead Volume 3, which is kind of a sci-fi western. And so I decided those would be the books that I would, and I picked up Lady Killer Volume 2, because I enjoyed Volume 1. So, and Border Worlds, Don Simpson's reprint of his series he did after Megaton Man.
Now, has that got anything new in it? I haven't got to that part in the previews yet.
I'm not sure. It might have a conclusion story in it. I don't know. I know he's been talking about it on his Facebook page. And again, it was something that I remember picking up. The art was gorgeous, but I was like, I wanted Megaton Man. and I bought onesie twosies, and I never really finished it out. So I think he will. I'll have to go look on Facebook. We'll get our best people working on it. Get a definitive answer there.
Sources will tell these reporters the answer to these questions next episode. And I wonder if he might want to do an interview.
That's always a possibility. In terms of actual reading, I finished Books of Magic Volume 1. Again, a series I have never read. Enjoying immensely. I have no idea when Volume 2 is coming out, but I hope it's soon. I've been reading the JLA, the Grant Morrison run that I bought from Adam Bromelian, our good buddy who was over at Panels and Pizza. And I got to the point where they referred to DC 1 million. Well, I happen to have the Omnibuy, so I ripped that sucker open and started reading it. I'm not even a third of the way through it, but I'm having fun. I mean, it's really neat to have them. I remember them when they first came out. It was a big event. It was a lot of fun. We talked every so often about money on the table. DC, you could bring Solaris back. That is a singular, frightening villain that was a major part of DC 1 million. And even towards the end, they said, we know he's coming back in our lifetime. And, of course, they never really did anything with it because they went to Final Crisis, and then they thought if they reboot the universe, we'd come back. But you got this great character, and terrifying. Use it, What else can we say? I kept reading the JLA run. They got into Crisis times 5, and then I think, what was the other one? Executive Action. A couple fun series, and Morrison kept rolling. And, of course, it's neat because as you're reading it now, he's referring to things that will come in when he does his final wind-up in the series. And, of course, I have it. I haven't read them, but that's on the agenda. A couple single issues I'll mention. We were talking about crossovers. I read Prophet Cable, which was a crossover between Maximum and Marvel Comics. They're two big characters that just basically like to shoot and fight. A lot of pencils by Rob Liefeld, Mark Pajarlillo. It's part 1. I don't know if I have part 2, but I got to admit, for what it was, I enjoyed it. I wasn't looking for anything, but they did have, time travel in it, and I'm always a sucker for that. And another single issue that I picked up, and I don't know why. Cory, you remember Gray's and what was his name? Palmotti's Jonah Hex?
Why, yes, I do.
Yeah, I have.
I'm allergic to it.
Well, you should be, because it's not code approved, and I have a single issue number 26 that was horrifying and also amazing. Not worth anything, so it's going in the aforementioned dollar bin that I'll be premiering at Fall Comic Con, October 7th. Mark it on your calendar.
Be there, aloha.
That'll be fun. I'm reading a book called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. It was given to me by a friend at work who's really into the investment scheme. I talked about it 2 years ago when I bought some Disney stock. Figure fair is fair. They got 90% of my paycheck. I might as well get a little bit back. And it's really kind of interesting. It's almost a book I think you should recommend for anybody, because they bring up a point that when you go to school, a lot of schools, even in our age, Cory, were geared towards the idea you go to school, you get good grades, you get a degree, you go work for a corporation, they'll take care of you, you retire.
Yeah.
Hasn't been that way in ages. Yet there are still people that are rich, there's still people that are doing good. So part of the problem is the way people think. Example, and they're not talking necessarily about how much money you have, but they're saying the poor dad works for money, the rich dad lets money work for him, which is a really interesting concept if you stop and you think on it, because that's kind of what I'm trying to do when I'm investing stuff. A lot of the money I make on the eBays, I turn around and I'm buying stock and bonds from, because I'm trying to make it so that I'll have income stream from dividends. I mean, it's going to take me a while, and really I should have been working on it 20, 30 years ago. But it's a difference between what makes somebody rich, somebody who I get to retire on 47, versus someone who's like 99% of my friends are going to keep working all their life. Yeah, and it doesn't necessarily mean that you're rich, because the poor dad can still be having a six-figure income, but he's got so much debt, he's got so much that he owes, he's just got the, because everybody wants stuff. You get a bigger income, you get a bigger house, you decide to get a bigger car, and then you owe on it, and then all the money you have has disappeared, and that's what you get trapped in the rat race. He talks about the poor dad, his dad, who even though he's college educated, has a degree, is teaching, is making six figures, is still poor because all his money's gone. Whereas a lot of people who are rich, they don't necessarily do it that way. Sure, there's times you go, I can't afford something. Whereas a rich person will say, how can I afford that? And again, it's an interesting book. I'm not doing it justice in any way. I read a chapter, I sit, let it gel for a while, but I do recommend picking it up. Like I said, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Just Google it. I don't even have it loaded up to figure out who's done doing it. In terms of other reading, you mentioned, Cory, about Marvel Unlimited. I finally got it to work.
Yay!
Fun. As I'm going through my vast crap collection, BCC, I'm discovering runs that I just must have decided, it's petering out. One of them was Iron Man right after Secret Invasion, where Tony Stark went through a 12-part storyline called Most Wanted. Fascinating book. And I must have bought like 3 chapters and then dropped it. But with Marvel Unlimited, I was able to read through it, and it was a lot of fun. Same thing when Incredible Hercules, when he took over what was Hulk's book, he did a series called Love and War, and I must have picked up 2 of the 6 parts and dropped it. Well, what's nice is now I can not only get rid of the comics that I never finished the storyline, and they're all worth $1 a piece, but I can still read it online. So, and now that I got Marvel Unlimited working, go back to all those old podcasts you listen to and download, erase everything bad I ever said about it, and if it's really for, what is it, $10 a month? I don't even know anymore. It's just it's a lot of fun. It's fun to find things and just sample them.
And they're adding lots of cool stuff. They added Planet Terry a little while back.
Really? Huh.
Yeah.
I thought that was a licensed thing. I didn't know they owned that one.
Nope. Planet Terry, Top Dog. They had a few. What it was when Harvey went under, Marvel thought, hey, here's these talents. They don't have a job. We're trying to break into the kids' marketplace. So that's where Star Comics came from. They actually went over and they hired the people who were still working on Harvey and had them do stuff. Royal Roy is the one they got in trouble with because it was way too close to Richie Rich.
So pick those up. Maybe those are worth something. Speaking of the eBays, again, I did pick up a couple things. I'm not going crazy, but I'm picking up bits and pieces. I picked up a book that apparently I had a number 2 of called Masters of the Ring. It's only a 2-parter and never to be seen again, but since I tend to like books that have a wrestling theme, I figured I'd pick it up. This one happened to have been autographed by the creator, Andrew Maurer. And so now I got both, and one of these days in the future I'll read them and try to figure it out. And last podcast we talked about Adam West Naked. Well, I found a copy that was bundled into a reissue of Batman the Movie. So now I have a second copy of Batman the Movie and the copy of Adam West Naked, where he talks about an uncensored conversation, the true stories behind all 120 episodes of the classic Batman. And since I have all 120 of the classic Batman, you may not be seeing me for a while. Oh, who am I kidding? We'll do a podcast next week. Cory, what are you picking on?
Yeah, but I never see you anyway.
Yeah, I'd send you.
I never see anybody.
Yeah, that's true.
And I like it that way.
Your turn. What you geeking on?
Binging. Oh, my God, am I binging stuff. with Hulu
Except
and Netflix and Amazon and all the others.
And the rest.
I don't sit and watch a single episode of a TV series anymore on anything. It's, okay, I'll catch up on this week's worth of The Daily Show. Boom. Or this week's worth of At Midnight. Or, here's 3 episodes of Twin Peaks. I'll get caught up on that. And with comics, with the app, the Marvel Unlimited app and other things, it's, I don't want to just read one. I can keep, sit down and, I'll read the 6 or 7 issues of Thor that I need to catch up on. Boom,
yeah, I didn't mention I was reading that Marvel Unlimited till like 3 in the friggin' morning.
Yeah. And I find that I like my entertainment more when I'm binging. Although, Joe, we have a second episode of our new segment.
Uh-oh.
I must confess.
Tell me, young lad, I'll hear your confession now.
I've been watching the show Scrubs. I'm in the middle of the 4th season. I jumped ahead and watched the last 2 episodes.
Oh, you're going to have to pay for that one. On your knees, lad.
Wait a minute. That's not part of it.
No.
And one of the things with Box Day and having to stay up all night, I did throw the latest Tomorrow's magazines in my go bag. So I did finally get to read the Marvel Fanfare issue, back issue.
Oh, I love that.
And normally with back issue, I jump around and, I'll read this article in there, some I wait till later and everything. Nope, that one I read cover to cover.
Yep. First time I've done that in a long time.
And I liked how he said, this is how this story started, this is how this story started. And it kind of explained, we had this George Perez Black Widow story that was supposed to be here, and then it just never got done, so it never got published, and then we finished it. Or the Steve Gerber Shaun the She-Devil story, which kind of closed out the run of the book, which I thought was really weird. But it's, we had one by Carmine Infantino, and then we, did this, and then we did this. And it's one of those series that I know you can't do now, but man, I love the books like that. The Marvel Fanfare, Tangled Web, Tales of the Marvel Universe. I love a good anthology series.
I just wonder if they could. I know. I just wonder, if there would be a way to do it. They have to constantly do something in order to keep their trademarks and copyrights alive. A
lot of what they do, they just do like a online, they do an online comic now.
Oh, so that's probably enough to cover it, I guess.
But I'm tempted to just start going through Marvel Comics Unlimited. Because I would say before issue 100, I kind of lost the thread on it because it was more, I didn't like the art style and the stories weren't as good and they didn't have the classic creators like they had in the beginning.
Mm.
But man, in the beginning, you had Doug Menschel, Master of Kung Fu. You had John Buscema on Wolverine. You had Steve Gerber on Man-Thing and Don McGregor on Black Panther. That's how they started with Marvel Comics Unlimited. And, when it was, I would say the first 5-6 years, that book kicked ass. Just kicked ass.
Oh, yeah. And then I read about the things that I missed because I dropped it.
Yeah.
And, and I've been looking. I mean, it's about $60 to get a complete run on the eBays. And there's plenty of people selling runs that are missing ones. And I don't know. I know there's 4 books at least, but I don't know if they print everything. So I'm looking.
The last thing I am geeking on is something that I ordered online. You can't get it in comic shops. And that is the Mike Waringo Telos Tribute, Volume 1, Fallen Friends, which continues the story from the comic Telos, which was done by Mike Waringo and Todd DeZago. And it has a number of stories in it by other comic creators, kind of as a tribute to Mike Waringo and the proceeds go to the ASPCA, which was one of the things that he loved. I do need to order the second volume. But no, just looking at the creator list for this one, you've got Richard Case, you've got Mark Buckingham, Terry Austin. I haven't seen Terry Austin art in forever. I miss Terry Austin's art. Todd DeZago, Terry and Rachel Dodson, Ramona Frandon. Let's see, Mark Hodge, Jeff Johnson, Stephen Gordon, Drew Moss, Brian Miller, Billy Martin, mostly known for being the lead guitarist for the band Good Charlotte. Casey Jones, Bart Sears, Joe Stanton, Stan Sakai, Gordon Purcell, Jerry Ordway, Andrew Peapoy, Todd Knock, Matt Waringo, Mike's brother, Mark Wheatley, and it's more stories set in that fantasy world. The problem is that the original series now is out of print, so hopefully they can get that back in print soon. But this was one of the books that came out. It was this, Battle Chasers, and Danger Girl were the 3 cliffhanger books. Oh, and Crimson, the vampire story. But just a beautiful book. Beautiful, beautiful book. I've always said I wish there was more. I wish there was more fantasy comics, and this shows why. It's not high fantasy like Tolkien. It's a different kind of fantasy, and I really enjoy it. Lots of good reading. And this weekend, with me not having to work at the group home during the day, I am just going to sit on my ass, read comic books, watch movies. The weather's supposed to be beautiful, so I'll be able to read out on the deck, and I'll be recording a couple of podcasts. Believe it or not, kids, you have listened to us blather on about funny books for an hour and a half.
And an unusual episode because we actually pretty much talked all funny books.
Actually, since about this time last year, we've been much more comic book focused, which I'm happy about.
Happy, happy, joy, joy, happy, happy. Well, we'll have to do something about that.
No, please don't. Please don't.
We'll have to.
You can do something about that. Do that on your show.
Sing along with Kray.
There you go. There's a new podcast for you. Sing along with Kray. Hey, the URL's not taken. And as we say every week, the comic we like the least, we still like better than the comic that you like the most. Joe?
You know, I think this Batman-Catwoman marriage will work. I mean, because Catwoman can always stay home if she's not feline well. Hit my music.